Look at all that power.
He's the boss.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, I see Mr. Kemmerling even coiffed his hair for us today. He knew he was going to be on the news.
I got all pretty.
At least you could have done was bring some coffee.
I even shaved yesterday.
Yeah.
It was an 8 o'clock shadow. Yeah.
Okay. 10 a.m. back in session, and it's like a scene from The Godfather. You walk out and you feel you might get whacked here with all these people. As an Italian who comes out. So instead of me introducing people, why don't you go through and if you could introduce yourselves for the media there or anyone listening and for the recording. So take it away.
I'm Matthew Stanfield with Field 9 Architecture.
Anna West Torrance with the North End Community Improvement Collaborative.
Bobby Thompson or Bobby Consultants.
Pastor Aaron Williams, pastor of Badass Memorial and a board member.
Good morning, Commissioners. Paul Kemmerling, North End businessman, board chair of NECIC.
Renee Thompson, Limited Potential for Achievement. Good morning, everyone.
Susan, North End resident and NECIC board member.
Mario Davidson, North End resident and NECIC employee.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. So when all the governments in Richland County and across America got rescue plan monies, the foundation was generous enough to pay for the formation of a steering committee for Rescue Plan Act dollars. Myself and Andrew Keller and some people in the room sat on that. Pastor, Deanna, Mr. Thompson came, I believe. Mario came to a couple, right? I think so. So as part of that discussion, there formed a good crux of that discussion was centered on a community center for the North End, particularly in the site where OC Hill sat. So as we progressed along, the city of Mansfield had set aside a set of money to participate in that. And we thought it might be a good time, particularly for Daryl and Cliff, since I have been involved the most, to kind of have NECIC come present and give you guys an opportunity to ask any questions or for the board to offer any insight. Obviously, we can't do that individually due to the Ohio Opens meeting next. We figured it would be a good time to have NECIC come, their representatives, and to have those important discussions as we move forward with this. So that's sort of where we are. And Deanna, I presume you're going to take the lead?
I will.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity for us to all come and present the North End Community Impact Center to you as a body. I was going to introduce everyone here, but we've already taken care of that. So I want to first acknowledge the work of the steering committee in helping to identify projects and things. I think it was innovative on the part of our community to have that type of a forum. So it was definitely very helpful to us as an organization to kind of put this idea out there and see if this was something that would align well, not only with what you all would like to see, but also what the community needed and the purpose of these funds. I also, before I get started, want to acknowledge Andrew Keller, who's kind of been the guide through all of this and his work helping us to interpret things, helping you all to interpret things. So hopefully he realizes how helpful he's been. So to give you an overview of our project that we are proposing would be called the North End Community Impact Center. It is located at 486 Spring Mill Street, which is State Route 39, and it is where there is our existing outreach center. Our board purchased that building following some gun violence in the neighborhood. As many know, NECIC, we're 16 years old. We moved around a number of times. We purchased a building down on North Main and then later moved to our downtown location when we started our staffing agency. So we've always been looking for a permanent home. And I think that acquiring a home was never the top priority for us. Instead, over the first 16 years, we looked more at implementing the residence plan and really trying to have a long range view of how to revitalize the North End. So that's been our primary work. As part of that work is the North End Community Economic Development Plan, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. And within that plan, we talked about a workforce development center, an arts-based workforce development center. That was in our 2011 plan, again in the 2017 plan. And at that time, our board member, now board chair, Paul Kemmerling, distributed copies of a book about that center to our board, and several of us took a trip to Pittsburgh to see this center. And then again last year, we took our architect, we took Brady Groves from the foundation, Allie Watson from the foundation, and someone from the SN and Ada Ford Foundation. So we took funders with us initially in the very early days of the concept of this project. Some of the other work that we did before I get into what the building actually is was we enlisted Matt Stanfield. Our board purchased the building, as I said, last June, with the intent of developing it into a useful space for the community. At the time that we engaged Field 9 Architecture, he spent a month with our staff looking at what were our needs, our board, a month with them, and then also with stakeholders. So when I'm saying stakeholders, I'm talking about residents of the community, people who would be users of the center, and also other partner organizations. So we wanted to make sure that we got a good 360-degree view of what the community wanted in a center. We often refer back to O.C. Hill, and I know at least Commissioner Mears has certainly seen the community's passion about O.C. Hill when that building closed down, and that there was an intention to replace something in the neighborhood that had been lost. And that's something that I know that the justification that goes to the federal government on this is one of the questions they ask, and that is about what is the harm that this project is going to address. So the harm that this project would address, there's much harm, but after decades of disinvestment in the North End, it's back helping people find jobs. We do have a staffing agency. We work with lots of local employers and we help people find jobs. We also are the Richland County Minority Business Assistance Center. I know you all are familiar with the MBAC, and that is a state program where we work with minority, veteran, and women-owned businesses, helping them gain certification and procurement opportunities with public entities. And Mario is our business advisor for that program. So we're helping do that. We have micro business development grants programming as well, helping people start businesses, get jobs. But what will be unique with this are some of the other partnerships. In addition to our housing and community development work and all of the programs that we do, this building allows us to do something that O.C. Hill did, and that's to rebuild strategic partnerships, because we cannot do things by ourselves. NECIC has never done a single project by ourselves. And so having these strategic partnerships allows us to leverage other organizations, other assets to help the same people that we're trying to help. One of the things that in the state and local recovery funds, or the ARPA funds, that they talk about is the disproportionate impact. Census Tract 7 is a disproportionately impacted community, is a disproportionately impacted census tract, meaning that the purpose of the funds, the ARPA funds, disproportionately hit that particular neighborhood. And so that is exactly where this investment would occur, right in the heart of it, but not as a singular thing. It's also in connection with the efforts of the urban farm and some other surrounding housing. We're so grateful. There's been now over 500 homes torn down in the North End. So it's an area that's ripe for redevelopment. We know what's going on out by on Route 39, by the Country Club, the new condominiums there. So the area itself is on the upswing. And so we're happy after 16 years to finally feel like we're turning the corner on that. Within the building, I talked about these partnerships, and our partnerships are business partnerships, partnerships with other nonprofits, and educational partnerships, which is pretty much what we do. And so the amenities, I talked about the harm, the violence. We feel that as a philosophy, a guiding philosophy for this building, we looked at the Circle of Courage model, which looks at belonging. We feel that after 7 elementary school closures, it's very, very difficult to find belonging. I don't go to this school. We know that that's an issue now as we go away from neighborhood schools, but it's something that had a terrible impact on the North End, that many schools closing in that small of an area over that short of a period of time. So we feel that replacing education, which was the prime thing that OC Hill did, was putting education back in a neighborhood where it was not. Also, as I said, the economic development activity, assisting with business development, helping entrepreneurs start businesses, and also connecting people to good jobs. We do have a lot of partnerships with local industry and business, such as our partnership with Gorman Rupp and the farm that we operate on their space, which sits literally 1 block away from this site. So we feel that there's been a lot of investment already and a lot of partnerships and energy and attention in that area. It is an area that is ripe for this, and it is going to affect disproportionately affected people, whether that's through poverty or racial, disproportionality as well. I want to, I talked about the partnerships, and I talk about them even before I talk about tenants in the building, because they're our partners already. But we have looked at the needs in the neighborhood, and we know that we needed a healthcare facility. We especially felt the impact of the closure of the OC Hill Center during COVID. People did not know where to go. And the way that that building functioned in the community was very different, perhaps, from how people from the outside of the community saw it. It's literally where all the elders went when they didn't know where else to go, where the youth went, where schools came. It was just really an incredible connecting point. And so now, as we look at things not being located in the neighborhood and we look at opportunities, particularly for young people, we're always talking about transporting kids. So we have to put them on buses and send them to art classes across town or send them to somewhere else across town. And what we really want to see in the North End is we want people to take, to realize that those things belong to them as well. And it's a lot cheaper to have the teacher come to the beautiful facility in their neighborhood. It's a lot more impactful than figuring out how to bust a bunch of kids out of their neighborhood. So just in terms of the economic development of the city, the whole county, for example, our farm is in the new visitors guide here. Agro-tourism is popping up. So we feel like we're catching the momentum. This is happening with the momentum of other things. I am going to pause and hand it off to our architect so he can tell you about the actual structures in the building. And then I have some handouts here for you. Thank you. Basically, that go over our mission, which is to improve the quality of life and economic landscape of the North End, which is that in the year 2028, and this was set in 2008, that the North End would be the leading engine of economic vitality, positive youth development, arts, and civic engagement. And that is what we have been marching towards for the last 16 years. Also, there is reference to our board of directors. Our bylaws state that 51% of our board are residents of the North End or represent organizations in the North End. And so we wanted you to see who these people are and see that our board is reflective of our community, probably more so than almost anywhere else you would see. Also, that we do have skill set among our board members to effectively govern the organization. But as we talk about investment of public funds, these are the people entrusted with the dollars that are invested. We've taken a lot of public funding already. And so we've always been very intentional to make sure that we have governance that are good stewards of those funds. So I will hand it over now to Matt. So if you want to start on page 4 at the pictures, he can kind of take you from there in terms of what is in the building.
Yeah. As Deanna mentioned, we did spend about 4 months doing interviews with staff, board members, and community members trying to understand not only what was lost from the OC Hill closing, but also what the community felt or was never there or hadn't been there for a long time. So kind of what started as NECIC recognizing that they're outgrowing their existing space and needed to move their offices quickly kind of evolved more into a community center type of program. So a lot of the things that were missing went away with OC Hill. Had to do with recreational facilities, but it also had to do with bringing some of the other nonprofit organizations and social service organizations into the neighborhood for easier access. So in kind of developing the plan for the building, first and foremost, looking at what NECIC's needs were and what they needed out of the building, but then also looking further to what the community needed. So what we kind of landed at was kind of two building. It also became part of the conversation also became important to keep the existing bank or credit union building that's there and work around that rather than demolishing it and starting completely from scratch. So kind of looking at how we build, it really kind of naturally, in laying it out, turned into kind of two sides. One is kind of the more business side, housing NECIC, medical clinic, professional offices, and then some tenant space on the third floor for social services to come in. And then the other side of the building became more the recreational side to house a theater, a community theater, a gymnasium, and then a fitness room that would also include boxing as part of that. And then the existing bank building, kind of the use of it that NECIC currently uses it for really what is a natural fit for that space. So that kind of becomes more of just a community room for hosting parties, for having dinners, that kind of thing. So we ended up kind of 3 floors, the business wing being 3 floors, housing the NECIC on the second floor, professional office on second, third floor being reserved as tenant space for other social service. And then kind of coming through the whole building is a lobby space that kind of connects what will be the parking lot to the street. So presence accessible from either side. Accessibility was also something that was really important, both from a kind of ADA point of perspective, but also just feeling welcome in the building and feeling that people belong there. So the lobby kind of acts as almost like a second street through the building where people can kind of come in, hang out, and then disperse from there to the different activities. In the community center side on the second floor, rooms, an esports lab, a podcasting studio, a recording studio, some smaller meeting spaces for either breakout groups or if you just have a smaller group that wanted to meet, those spaces would be also, as we kind of looking at the building, we really wanted to be at the kind of forefront of sustainability and looking at different ways that we can reduce the impact of the building from a ecological standpoint while maximizing it from kind of an economic. So we're looking at using what's called passive building strategies, which is super insulation, airtight, mechanical ventilation, making sure that we're controlling the indoor air quality so that you have a healthier, more comfortable space, but we're also saving operations through not having to use as much heating and cooling in the space. Also looking at photovoltaics or solar panels on the roof to offset some of the electric use and possibly kind of more of a ground mounted type solar system over having some covered. And also, once we make sure we are planning a living roof over the lobby. So that would be a rooftop terrace that would be accessible to people to use, but also provide extra insulation, rainwater management, and all the other benefits that come with kind of a living roof.
Great. Thank you. So in your packets that we gave you, we did have that we have some additional materials for you that we'll go over in just a moment. I did not address the other side of the building. Thank you, Matt, because I wanted to specifically say that as this project were coming into fruition and as we worked with the city on the project, it really became evident that there was a desire to, or I guess really that having the recreational side of the building would not be appropriate for ARPA funding, or there was not an appetite for that. So the building, the side of the building that I have concentrated on is what is the longer side. If you're looking at it, it'd be on your left. And that is where the more business side of the building, offices, staffing, the medical clinic, and nonprofit. The other side are more of the arts-based programming. So the way that we've looked at the funding of that is it's not quite 50-50, but there's a greater percentage on the so 5.9, the total cost of the project is between 12 and $14 million, which depends on prevailing wage and some of those things. We feel like we should put the higher number there in case that's what it actually ends up being. And then $6.1 million would be the side that we're requesting, the ARPA investment side, which is the business side of the building. And then the remaining $5.9 million we see for funding the other side of the building, and that it would be non-ARPA funded activities or that part of the building.
So Deanna, when you break these down, you have the non-ARPA. Let's see, that's about 5.1. And then the ARPA is 5.9. That's sort of that's NECIC's breakdown of what NECIC believes ARPA funding could contribute to. Is that so?
We talked about, yeah. So the side of the building. So it's, if you think about it as the arts side or the enrichment side, that we're looking at the cost of those, and we have included in your packet the statement of probable cost, so you can kind of see what those would look like. And so the 6.1 million, it would be what we would call the ARPA side or the ARPA eligible.
Spreadsheet shows non-ARPA 6.1.
I don't have the glasses.
You're correct. Non-ARPA is 6.1.
To make sure
Oh, I got it mixed up. It's backwards on my
I mean, it's not a huge difference.
label. Okay. Thank you. So anyway, we did include that so you could see actually what the estimates for these spaces are. In operating the building, I think that it's also important to look at the tenants. We have included, not all, but some of the commitments. Actually, MOUs are with our attorney, and I don't have them yet for you. But I do have included in your packet, there should be letters from potential tenants, and kind of a letter of intent, one coming from a local clinic that is that you can see who that is, and we are in the stages of discussion with that. They've met with Matt. They helped to design that space and have requested that we do the build outs for that space and include that in their lease. We are looking at 5-year leases for them with, I think they said 2 renewal terms. And they wanted that the cost of that build out to be included. So I'm not going to go into that because now I am into the project manager's part. And so I introduce again to you Bobby Thompson, who has been a tremendous help in this process and who can get down to more of the technicalities of the project and maybe answer some more specific questions for you all.
Good morning. We have been working diligently since last week to bring the project into fruition and pull together the pieces that are necessary to move the project forward and make sure that we are following all protocols, all of the requirements, typical due diligence that you go through in development to make sure that we have covered anything and everything. CIC is not out there, and then there's an issue that we miss. There's an environmental issue, or there's add soils underground. So we've gone through all of that. As you heard from Matt, he's worked through the final design. We're very close to what that will look like in the packet that you have received, and the spatial requirements from the tenants that will be in the building. Deanna presented you the preliminary budget. The site survey has been completed. No, site survey is in process. There's some finding that yet needs to be completed on that end of it. The environmental review is in process. Soil boring also in process. Initial soil boring is complete, but as Matt also mentioned, we're looking at geothermal, so we need to go down 200 feet to do that. And the persons we had on the soil borings couldn't go that deep, so that piece is in process as of yet. Fundraising is underway, and we have community support. So we've done all of the due diligence that needs to be done on the front end for a development project in order to be able to move that project forward. And included in your packets is the justification that the county requested. Goes to the building, and it provides 2 buildings that we used as better than this in order to do the project to move it forward.
And if you have no more questions, I just have one last part about the appropriateness of it and what kinds of amenities it will have that would affect, which would be appropriate for state and local recovery fund investment. And that is that definitely it is an underserved population that we are talking about. It does respond to the health and economic impacts of COVID-19. There were also one of the economic impacts for households and communities that it spoke about was assistance to individuals, that it would be eligible for assistance to individuals who are available for work, including job training, public jobs programming, and job fairs, et cetera, et cetera. Also subsidized employment, also assistance to unemployed individuals to start small businesses and development of job and workforce training centers, which is exactly what this is. And what things we could not meet. If we think about quality of life, we have included the arts, partner with the arts. Our projected partner, proposed partner right now is the Mid-Ohio Civic Opera. And Joel was going to provide me with a letter this morning, but he was not able to, was not able to get in touch with him. So as I said, the clinic has also provided you with their intent. There's also a letter from Field 9 Architecture, who also intends to be a tenant in the building for us. There's also, as I said, there is a 4th, the entire 3rd floor. There's also a local nonprofit we are seriously negotiating now with them as a tenant. So we're seeing us being able to get quite a bit, recoup quite a bit from leases and tenants in the building. But not only are they there for their rent, they're also there. They've been strategically selected so that we can go after funding together. We can bring in funding together. Have included a social service agency, arts organization, business, health. And we've tried to be very intentional about responding to the data that we've seen whether it was in the North End Plan, the report on the state of the African American in Richland County, all of these things. That's what we've been working on in tandem with just doing soil borings, but also trying to develop those partnerships, ensuring that we're all in this together and that we're going to move forward with some programming that's going to be good for the citizens of Richland County. And with that, I'm going to be quiet.
Questions?
I'd like to start. I have some questions.
Sure.
Deanna, you spoke of strategic partnerships, and I think that's very important. You and I met with Mario on September 2nd, and that's when I saw my first glimpse of the floor plan. And it seemed to me at that time that a lot of what is on drawings. So bear with me a second here. As I walked out of our meeting and looked at your floor plan, I looked at you're proposing a basketball court, which House has, an art studio, which Friendly House has, a theater, which Friendly House has, classrooms, which Friendly House has, kitchen and a cafeteria, which Friendly House has, conference rooms, which Friendly House has, office space, which Friendly House has. You're proposing a fitness center, which Friendly House has. That's 0.3 of a mile from your site. It's a 6-minute walk. So when we talk about strategic partnerships, I'm surprised that they weren't part of the discussion when the proposal was put together. I met with management of Friendly House shortly after our meeting. I asked them about this and I said, well, were you consulted prior to this thing? Well, We weren't. We read about it in the media just like everybody else. And so that's concerning to me because so many of the facilities that you're looking at building already exist, 6-minute walk away. What's more concerning to me, some of the comments that were made by the management of Friendly House, such as, if that is built, this community cannot support both facilities, cannot support both facilities. Anything that they are proposing, we're already doing. And as a commissioner, we have a finite amount of ARPA resources, and we're trying to do the most good for the most people. When I look at some of the other asks that we have for ARPA, such as some communities are struggling with affordable clean water. In one community, I look at basic need, what appears to me a redundancy in services. I can't support this based on what I'm hearing. Friendly House, I know, has been growing. They have been looking at adjacent properties to purchase, most recently in 2020, and they're looking at others. So I don't see how this is collaborative with Friendly House. As a matter of fact, I asked that exact question. Would you interface with them? And they said, no, this is direct competition with Friendly House. And I'm quoting here.
Mhm.
So how do you address that?
I would say that from the inception, our with Friendly House occurred in 2006, when the Fran and Warren Rupp Foundation asked us to meet with them and look at this, is while OC Hill was still there. I'm shocked at some of what you're saying. It's kind of taken me aback because I also met with Friendly House's management and I did not get that same story. What we are proposing for ARPA funding in no way is a duplicative of anything that Friendly House is doing. As far as I've been very intentional about trying to show that there are two separate parts of the building and where we would like for ARPA funds to be invested. And that is in the workforce side, the staffing side, the health clinic side, the minority business assistance center side, to which none of those things are offered at Friendly House. I would also say that we have certainly reached out to Friendly House. We have partnered with Friendly House on children's gardening programs, on things at our teaching garden. We've given them small grants. We've assisted them in many ways. So I'm kind of surprised at that. And when they were not able to deliver services this summer, as all of this was coming out and we were finding that out, we reached out to them, offered to help them find staff for their programs, which they weren't able to run because they didn't have the capacity. So I think that what is looking like duplication, I think that the Y would be much closer than us to the Friendly House in terms of offering of services. The Y has a daycare. The Y has a gymnasium. The Y has a pool. The Y has fitness rooms. The Y does all of those things. And so
In the same
that is
community.
exclusively what the Y does.
Though you're talking about the North End.
Okay, but that's not all that we do at all. We are a community development corporation. So we don't at all do what Friendly House does. So I'm shocked that they said we are direct competition because there's not one program that we do that's like Friendly House's at all.
Even if you leave out any dialogue that was given to me, I have to agree that what's in your floor plan is what's also in Friendly House's existing floor plan, which has been there since 1912.
Right, I understand. And we, if you go back, you'll see last year, we wrote a whole entire piece on recognizing the value. My mom went to Friendly House, my kids went to Friendly House. So this is certainly not an anti-Friendly House conversation, but what I do think that's happened over the years is that people are not necessarily seeing the changes in the offerings of the two of our organizations. OC Hill was, and this came from Terry himself. OC Hill served 250 kids a day. Friendly House was at full capacity. He said to me, where are those children? Who is serving those families now? That's what he said to me and a group of other people when we sat down to discuss this project with them. I've reached out to their board chair. I've spoken to her. We did not know when they were going to beautify that corner on Mulberry Street And we're the neighborhood, that's our thing. So we are grateful to them because we need as many people as we can, the capacity. And I think that if you actually look at the data and the number of kids and families served, to expect Friendly House to do that isn't even fair. I mean, they simply don't have the ability and the capacity to do it. I'm not running a daycare. I'm not doing anything that they're doing at all. And the Friendly House has always served different people anyway. So and I think that if you were to talk to North End residents, I think that you would hear that. So I understand what the organization itself is saying, and Friendly House is awesome and we need it, but there's only so much you could expect Friendly House to do. And so I think that it was built in 1912. It was. And part of the OC Hill Center was built in 1914, and it's 2022, and those buildings are outdated, and our youth deserve something better, and our businesses deserve something better. And there has not been any significant investment in a long time. And it has affected the quality of life. And so what I would be curious to ask is, for the last 16 years that we've come to you all, whether it's been commissioners or city council, and we bring that plan, that North End plan, I was under the impression that everyone kind of understood what our work was, because that's not what we do. We don't do the same work as Friendly House. And the amenities that we offer to people. OC Hill took the kids that couldn't go anywhere else.
Matt, when you did your month-long, and I can at least say this, and again, I've been part of ARPA, so I'm not going to say a whole heck of a lot, but I can say a couple of things. When Commissioner Banks and I met with the Friendly House, they did share some of the similar sentiments to us that they share with Commissioner Mears. So I can tell you what Commissioner Mears is saying. That was the sentiment we got. They did share with us that they weren't consulted. So I guess this question would be for Matt. When you did your month-long, and this is a great plan. So again, I want to make sure that we're keeping this on the right track, and this is an excellent building. But when you did your month-long meetings or solicited feedback, did you at any point involve the Friendly House?
We did not directly involve the Friendly House. No.
Okay. Okay, but I just wanted to, I think that is something that the Friendly House shared with Daryl and I. But that doesn't, not giving an indication of one way or the other, my support. I'm just, for Commissioner Mears's purposes. Their entire board did share with Daryl and I some concerns, but you guys met that as well. I think you had initial design for the pool.
Yes.
There was concern, you removed that. So I certainly do think you guys were amenable and
Absolutely.
trying not to duplicate services. But I would agree with Commissioner Mears that Friendly House was a little taken aback. And I think there was concern for their organization that if this happens, it'll put their organization in jeopardy.
Well, if I can, when I think about how our projects are funded, who our funding sources are, we don't have the same funding sources. We don't do any of the same work. I mean,
Okay, well, if I can ask this, if you don't do any of the same work, why are you building a basketball court, art studio, theater, classrooms, kitchen?
have young people because Friendly Houses aren't always open and accessible to people and haven't been for years. Not for years.
So that's not the story I got. As a matter of fact,
I
they
understand.
have additional capacity that, and if they said it would be far more cost effective, and these are not my words.
I understand. And I think you're doing due diligence. You should be asking about this.
I asked, I said, are you at capacity? He said, you know what? If we had another bus, he said, the problem is not the facility. The problem is we can't pick them up and bring them here. We could serve far more people if we had more transportation. That would be the best thing. And in terms of no investment in that building, when I went through it, I've had a number of I've attended a number of activities there when I was on city council as well as commissioner. The building to me is about as pristine as you can get. I saw no peeling paint, no bulbs that were.
Oh, no, they
flickering lights.
well loved build. No. Friendly House is a
It's a nice facility. And as I mentioned, they're looking at growth as well. They picked up some properties and are looking at other adjacent properties through the land bank as they come available. So, that's those are the issues that I've recognized from, again, my due diligence and researching what services are available now. And if you're providing different ones, I don't understand why you're building so much of the same hard.
because we're trying to replace OC Hill. we're replacing what was gone from OC Hill. OC Hill was packed. It was 250 kids a day when I was the director. It was packed. Those kids have dispersed. We don't know where they are. And so, yes, Friendly House has.
The more, the
always
the
been.
asking for, we would get those 250.
Well,
That's what Friendly House has,
absolutely.
the far more cost-effective measure of serving more people.
For helping us start businesses.
Well, for
Start-
helping start businesses, well, you have your staffing agency downtown, right? But what is there to that? That's a meeting of the minds, and they have conference rooms, they have office space. I guess I just don't see anything that's not being presented in the floor plan. And for that reason, again, we have so many asks. We're trying to do the most we can for the most people, and invest in structures that are basically parallel with what is a 6-minute walk away. And in terms of the Third Street Clinic, that is 1.6 miles away. That is a 6-minute drive. I don't think that's burdensome to have a healthcare place less than 2 miles away from the existing site or the site.
The healthcare clinic wants to expand, and that is the reason that they asked to be in the building and expand their services and add another clinic in the neighborhood.
One of the things that you just mentioned is that the funding sources are different from Friendly House to you. That's pretty obvious. Most of your funding comes from the government, or very little of theirs does.
No, most of our funding does not come from the government at all. We raise over half of our funding through the sales of our staffing department. We earn our money. We're not completely grant dependent. Our funding comes from a number of different sources, but we also provide service for those. So we do have contracts, as you know, we do the youth employment with you all and the work for the MRDD, but as a nonprofit, we've tried to leverage the infrastructure that we built through our staffing agency to help our public entities. So we're not mostly government funded.
Okay, well, my biggest question is that when I met with Bobby and Mario, I asked, this was in May, I asked for a budget of the maintenance cost and what it's going to, how you're going to sustain this beautiful building, and also staffing and income. I guess I'm believe in entrepreneurship, which it seems that you're pushing that, but yet do we want to spend money, ARPA money, for business offices that, you're already doing that. Am I correct? You're already doing that?
So what we've tried to do in terms of our funding mix at our organization is to balance that out and not be like a lot of nonprofits and just be so grant dependent. So we do operate two businesses, one being the staffing agency. They are incorporated under the nonprofit, so they are nonprofits, but they are every bit the same, identical to a for-profit. And also we have our urban farm. So as an organization, I think one of the things that we're often applauded for is how creative we've been in trying to develop our funding mix. We do have government grants, but we also have a private foundation, we have corporate foundation, we have individual donors. We have a very diverse funding mix.
I would imagine that your employment agency is doing quite well because
I wish.
so many people. So maybe it's not doing well because there's so many jobs. Maybe that's it. But I have,
Definitely impacted.
where is the budget?
That is not yet complete quite
One
yet.
and a half months. And my words at that time were, I can't consider this until I see a budget. How are you going to sustain it? Can't support it without a staffing thing. You're telling me that you won't have to add staff. That was mentioned. Maybe not from you, but that was mentioned. We're not going to have to add staff. Well, how can you add all this and not add staff?
There is some staff that will be added that is included in the budget. We did not have the operating budget complete to be able to present to you today because we're trying to give you accurate information when we give it to you and not come back and say, well, we changed this or we changed that. That you should have within the next couple of weeks. It is close to being complete and it is fully funded as it is where it is with the maintenance person, additional staff, and the tenants that are in the building. So we don't see an issue on our side, but we recognize coming into this meeting that we did not have that, but we will have that within the next couple of weeks.
And as I mentioned, our MOU.
We're under a, we got so much time. 24 seems like a long way away, but we all know how quickly it'll get here.
Mhm.
And we're going to have to be making decisions on where we're going to spend the money.
We understand.
So I'm one of three. And again, as I said, this is an opportunity for these guys. I've been on the steering committee. I'm still tentatively supportive of the project.
Thank
I say tentatively because I think we've had some tough discussions in the steering committee. I think there is value and investment to North End, particularly when we're looking at sizable investments in the southern part of our county. So I've had an opportunity to drive around with Deanna, and no one knows the history of the North End better than her, I can tell you that. But I do think there are some concerns from the Friendly House perspective, and I can reiterate that they echoed those sentiments to Daryl and I. So I don't know what the disconnect is between the Friendly House and this project, and it's not vitriolic from their side.
Mhm.
I think the sense I got was, hey, we've been here forever and we didn't know this was coming. And it's not for me to say it. Certainly Mr. Stanfield seems to back that up. I am a little surprised that being so close that they weren't brought into the loop, but that's fine. But I am still tentatively supportive.
Thank you.
But again, I do think the dollars and cents are one thing. I mean, let's be honest. I said this in the steering committee meeting. There would be no other ARPA investment on behalf of the county taxpayers similar to this project. And we have friends, people we respect very much, who run nonprofits and say, hey, that's a large amount of money going to one nonprofit. And so I think it requires some due diligence. But where are we on the fundraising piece? I mean, I'm looking at a cost now. Again, when we were on the steering committee, we thought it was going to be 8 or 9. And Mr. Thompson, I'm seeing 14.
14.
Well, I know in today's day and age and inflation, as someone who just did a housing project, whatever the higher number is,
So with that,
into the higher number. And in this, again, when we were looking at sewer and wastewater, as Mr. Keller will attest, when we went with a range, we went with the higher range, right? We have to for budgeting perspective. So where are we with just the straight dollars and cents right now in fundraising for the project?
You want to answer?
I can answer. I can tell you that we have already been in discussion with a number of private foundations. We have already had some applications sent to us that don't typically do unsolicited. So you have to be invited to apply. We have been invited to apply. We have about 6 foundations right now that we're in various states of preparing applications for them. The big thing for us was to see, was the county going to invest with us, because that greatly increases our chances of drawing down these philanthropic dollars. What we've been saying was that the city has already committed. We have an ask kind of on the table that we were going to be presenting to our county. And I think that was the most attractive thing, was that our public entity saw value in our project and would be investing, even if you came in as last dollars in, as we suggested, raise all the other money first. So I think that is huge. I think that this is an incredibly attractive project. We've literally had people call us out of the blue. So it's a little bit disheartening to hear from our own community that they don't see as much value in what we're trying to do, or that it's even from the standpoint of the Friendly House. And so I'm curious. I'm not quite sure how to fix that. I don't know how to fix this. We are 2 different agencies and we do 2 different things. And I feel like the North End deserves more than a 1912 building. And I would think that the Friendly House would feel that as well. And no one stopped them from applying. So I don't understand why we aren't consulted by another organization's board. We've been so busy trying to do our own due diligence that I don't know how to respond. I don't know what to do with that. I certainly can get you numbers. I'll tell you what's holding this up is my attorney finalizing MOU. So we know for sure the income side for our tenants. So that's what's holding it up. I don't have it back from him. We spoke to him as recently as yesterday, but just so you know, there's definitely a draft. There's work on that. So I want to make sure I speak to what you're talking about. It has not been an oversight. It's
So Deanna, you are a very, very smart person. So I will ask again.
And to answer,
Do we have any firm dollars
firm dollars.
project to date?
I would say beyond the city, not yet.
Okay.
We've been doing all the pre-solicitations, talking to foundations, getting them interested. Most of the proposals will go in the next couple weeks.
So do you have a timetable on when that may be? Like Commissioner Banks said, barring a change in the law, I know 2024 doesn't seem that far away.
Our
I also know with delays in construction. I mean, I look at this and I go, we can get into there can be more discussions behind the scenes on reconciling what the Friendly House is saying to what you guys are saying. But I'm just looking at the nuts and bolts of seeing if this building can happen, right? I think pastors heard it from me at the steering committee. Hey, this is good, but we got to pay for it. That's a lot of money in a short amount of time.
It is.
It is noted in your packet that the strategy that we have in place is to have funding in place by the end of 2023.
23. That's it.
So it is.
When do you expect to at least have some firm commitments? I know it's sort of a little bit of a chicken or the egg. Hey, county, you got to, but I know the city's committed, but they've committed in the same capacity that we may or may not commit, meaning we'll commit if the money's there. Right? So I guess my question to the board as a whole would be, when can the county taxpayers maybe, when they make this commitment? This isn't our commitment. This is the taxpayers' commitment. When would the county taxpayers see some firm commitments?
From funders, you mean from
That's what it is.
Non
I would say
in county,
non-public funds?
correct.
Oh, I would say easily within the next quarter.
Okay.
On that subject, when we talked in May, it sounded like your campaign is going to start in July. And the only thing I've seen on your website, you do have a place where people can donate, which you're going to get some funding, I'm sure, from that. But obviously, that's not where you got to get the big bucks. But I'm surprised you haven't kicked something off yet.
I think that we have spent a lot of our capacity right now trying to just keep it moving forward in terms of getting the work done, getting these environmentals actually moving forward. NECIC so far has picked up the tab on everything, which is costly. But we are committed. We will build the building. And so I think that a lot of our efforts and our capacity has been trying to make sure that we're covering every single one of these details, many of which are the questions we were hearing from you all, aligning it with making sure that this was appropriate use of the dollars, which it clearly was. And just trying to keep on goal in terms of the work that has to get done, the environmentals, and trying to stay on track with that timeline. That's where I'd have to say that we've spent quite a bit of time and reaching out to funders and foundations and things. So as we go into that preparation stage, we really did want to have this meeting first and be able to tell funders, hopefully we would be able to go in and say our community saw this and invested in it. Definitely would help us. The city, certainly their investment will help. It changes a bit if we don't have this, but I guess I'm more concerned even more than the funding. I'm more concerned with our messaging and making sure that people actually understand what it is that we're doing, because I think that can be problematic, I'm sure, with fundraising. So telling that story locally, I think, is different than telling it to an outside funder. So I'd say in the next quarter, Tony, the next 3 to 6 months, you're definitely going to see that activity pick up.
From a big picture perspective, and I'm only speaking for myself here, I mean, the county received $23.5 million in ARPA funds, and 13.5 of that are what we described for purposes of this meeting as restricted ARPA, right? And the guidelines certainly indicate or direct dollars to be spent on disproportionately impacted communities. So I'm still, again, tentatively supportive. I think there is value. I'm not saying yes yet. Obviously, I want to see the dollars and cents, and I think we need Friendly House to weigh in too. But I don't know, what would you want the next step to be, or the board?
Can I ask a couple questions?
Sure.
One,
It's a public meeting.
does the Friendly House need to weigh in that reflects on our project as far as
Like with me.
collaboration?
Well, I think my response back would be that would sort of be for you guys to sort out without Friendly House.
Them, I mean, I don't know. Are we supposed to take the gymnasium out? Are we supposed to, like, we understood the issue with the pool and that's a revenue center for them. And we understood that. And we did not want to compete with that. But there's definitely a need for another gymnasium. I ran the OC Hill Center. It was packed. There's a need. And Terry is who said that to us. He goes, what's happening to all those people? The other thing is during the day, our center, we've already met with Dewana. Our center is going to be used for seniors during the day. We've already been meeting with area agencies team on that. There is no senior center in Mansfield either. And so we're looking at being able to do that. Does Friendly House have a senior luncheon? Yes, they do. They have a senior luncheon that they have after we had ours. So I think that both are great for our neighborhood. We need the Friendly House. Any CIC cannot replace the Friendly House.
We're
And
not trying to.
yeah, absolutely.
And
We are not, we're just not the same organization. It's like it's kind of like saying the grocery store and the gas station are not the same, but you can buy a pack of gum in both. It's kind of like that.
So I think we need to be clear, though, to be fair to the Friendly House, since they're not here. This wasn't we don't want this to happen. Okay. I think they were just relaying some concerns from their point of view, but they want the same thing you guys do, which is the best for the North End. Conversely, though, I think they have shared sentiments to this board, and we fielded phone calls from their board members. And when Daryl and I went around that, their board was there. And so I think they did share some concerns. And I don't know how to answer your question other than I don't think.
Are they proposing expanding the use of their facilities? Like you mentioned, conference rooms and all these things. Are they proposing now making these things widely available? So we should partner with them and use their building.
If you're asking if they're planning on a major investment, no.
No, I don't mean investment. You said they already had those spaces.
Yes.
So I'm trying to get to what it is that you would like for me to do.
I'm not asking, I don't have a request for you. I'm just saying,
You're saying no, because they already have that, but are you saying you want them to use that for the community in a different way?
is they could use more of their capacity if they have transportation for those that can't get there and can't get home.
So what are they?
Have more people.
Doing something direct to remedy that?
They're trying to buy a bus. That's what they told me. They said, and their words were, it would be far more cost effective building a new operation, a new community center. Just give us a bus and more people in, and we'll serve more people that way.
Where are they bringing those people from?
That's a Friendly House question.
So that's what I'm saying. This is serving the north, mostly serving the north end. So the people that have been lost have been North End people. There's a gym at OC Hill already. So there's two gyms.
Well, that's coming down.
Yeah, but he's saying there's
right.
already
But
two. There's been two gyms. Yeah.
Since 2004, or
They have little
1914, it's been two gyms. So why is anybody complaining about?
Yeah, I do think you make a fair point, Pastor, that OC Hill and Friendly House did work together. So why couldn't it step in?
Terry and I were both.
Space at OC Hill.
There are
Hill is gone.
there are areas.
I mean, that's
That's
the counter to that, right? It's
Yeah.
friendly.
There are areas.
Maybe we could support two.
There are areas.
That's
in our
not true at all.
community-
That's not what happened.
There
That's
are
not what
areas
happened.
in our community, you can stand up against a clinic, throw a rock and hit another.
Oh,
Okay.
next door.
Next door, there's clinics all over town, but you can't find one in a huge swath of the North End. You speak about 6-minute drive from Third Street Clinic. From Third Street Clinic North, there's nothing. Yeah, let's think about it. There's nothing.
What I'm,
No, there's no
Emergency
clinic.
care, you'll get it from the firehouse.
what I'm saying is your proposed site to the Third Street Clinic is 1.6 miles.
You mean friendly house, right?
No, he means Third Street. He means
Well, that's,
Thursday clinic.
Which is
There's nothing.
all different.
There's nothing. And your
they're at
education-
capacity. They have 9
And again,
locations
they're
and
the
they're
ones that
there.
came to us
they
and
came
said, we
to
want to
said-
expand.
and Third
He
Street.
said, we want to,
Not friendly.
That is
our
the
people,
closest
our target, who we want to serve is who you want to serve. And so we did not so Third Street. And I don't like talking about it because it's not at the level of their board, as I indicated in the letter. But there's definite conversations. There is a serious conversation going on with them. And so I wanted to let you all just see that. I think that to say that having more than one clinic in the North End is, I'm sure that's not, Trimble Road has doctor's offices next door to each other. People who live in that neighborhood have access to a lot of medical care. This was intentional, again, about making sure that when we have people who are coming to that nonprofit that does social services, that they get primary care and that it's accessible and close. And that if they're getting a job, that it's accessible and close. It's a one-stop shop. And that it not only would meet those needs and be kind of a social service building, which no one really wants to have, then there's also arts and enrichment and vibrance in life. It's quality of life programming. And so our building now is rented out every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. People are using it for funerals, for the meals after funerals and things like that. So the way that the neighborhood uses these spaces may be very different from how you all might be interpreting that. And even the Friendly Houses board.
It's not my interpretation.
I'm saying, well, even the Friendly Houses board,
Understood.
yeah, I understand.
what
No,
we
I
need to
understand.
do-
I'm trying to, just like they shared with you, I'm just trying to say.
But I think what they don't understand is
They're-
providing such unique services. Why are you building a basketball court, art studio, theater, classrooms, conference room, fitness center? Those are hard structures. So it's like, you can't compare a gas station with a grocery store as you did. These are fitness center, a
Saying
fitness
that in both of these, you have youth,
cafeteria. a
but they
theater.
serve very different. They serve when is the last time they had a theater program? And when is the last time a North End young person was in it?
And that's one of the
Can't answer that.
things is that structure may be there, that capacity may be there, but it hasn't been available.
Has not for the
I'll
neighborhood.
give you an example. We're working through a relationship with a local operatic organization who has tried numerous times to work at Friendly House and has been denied over and over again. Capacity is there, but it's not being utilized. I would also say if you're talking to the board, you're not talking to the staff, because we have talked to the staff and the staff are at capacity. The building may not be at capacity, but Friendly House staff are at.
My understanding from talking to them was they're facing the same staffing issues any business and organization is right now. They had a hard time getting a lifeguard for their swim programs, so they had to discontinue. They couldn't get a lifeguard. Okay,
Well, now we don't.
everybody's facing that. But in terms of the theater, keep in mind, you're 1.1 mile from Mansfield Playhouse, for which I served on the board for 30
I
years.
guess
But 1.1 mile,
And why-
a show, you can do one there. I know Ohio Civic Opera's done that as well.
Are the board members residents?
I can't answer that.
So the people you
Probably not
spoke to,
residents.
are they North End residents, the ones you spoke?
I didn't ask where they live. I didn't ask what their mailing address is. No, I don't know.
I think one of the key things to point out is that the population that Friendly House actually served was young people. I think they stopped serving people in like 5th or 6th grade. Whereas NECIC, realistically, we don't touch a kid until they're in high school
Or middle school?
or some middle school
School-based
programming, which we do in the school.
Do employment, youth employment, job readiness, entering.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, I think our youngest kid that we touched this year was 13 or so.
So why don't we do this? Let's pencil in an update. I don't have, certainly not the smartest person in the room, but I certainly can feel I'm probably the dumbest person in the room. I certainly feel, I think there's some more questions that need answered. And I think there's an ongoing dialogue that needs to take place.
With the friendly house.
I just think with us and the Friendly House, I think Daryl has some asks that he's waiting on. Budget figures we're waiting on.
As soon as I get those, I will get that.
So let's
Hang him.
let's I'll get with Deanna. I'm still the chair to the end of the year. We'll set up maybe a December review. You said at the end of the quarter, you expect to have some financial commitments. And that's sort of what I've been sitting in with the steering committee is, I think the justification makes sense. OC Hill and Friendly House did thrive at the same time. I think you make some good points and maybe it'll tweak some things. Okay, we still got a little bit of time. So let's.
And we did extend an invitation to Terry to, okay, now that we've sat down and talked about this, let's work through this. So he actually did see the drawings. We did have a full conversation about what was being offered. So again, we've talked to staff, not necessarily in depth to their board, although I did talk to their board chair. I've talked to 2 people on their board.
So I'll get with Deanna. I think it's a fair statement to say, I don't think you have a head nod yet because it's a lot of money. And we need to do our due diligence because we answer to the taxpayers, just as Deanna, you answer to your board and so on and so forth. So
I got it.
I think we'll pencil you in maybe Q4. You should have the budget by then, right, Daryl? I would hope, Mr. Thompson. That's true. I guess I'll look at you and say you should have the budget. And maybe you can answer some of the Friendly House questions. And I'm sitting here just saying, hey, let's see some dollars and cents as we move towards.
I'll try. If you all can follow up with me and just let me know more specifically, maybe you can give me some guidance. I'm happy to talk to the Friendly House. I just need guidance on what I would be talking to them about.
You're a very smart person. I'm sure you can figure it out.
All right, Sam.
All right.
Being smart.
Any questions from Mr. Kale, Carl, Al?
Yeah, how frustrating is it that you're at this point in the process and the same questions about the Friendly House are still coming up?
I think that it indicates something that we can do better, and that's distinguishing ourselves from Friendly House. And I wonder if even Friendly House's board members understand what we do. So I certainly am not I don't begrudge people. I understand. I think that if I were in their seats, I would probably have similar questions. I feel like we've been around long enough for people to know. If people want to know what our work is, they should look at the North End plan. That's what we do. And it's not what the Friendly House does. But I think that the amenities in our building, as I've said before, I feel like they're much closer to the Y, actually. They both do daycare, childcare, youth development programming, pool stuff, gym stuff, camps. They're much closer to the Y. We are literally doing business development, community gardening, urban farming, staffing,
Economic development,
youth workforce development. And so that's why I'm kind of lost. I'm not quite sure. So I would say it's not frustrating as much as I'm kind of lost because more than one building can have a gymnasium. And we absolutely are 2 totally different organizations.
Carl, if I might as well, we've quietly been coexisting with the Friendly House for 15 years. We've quietly been going about the business of doing really dirty work, pulling down blighted houses, cleaning up neighborhoods, having dumpster days, doing significant outreach in the neighborhood. And nobody's ever had a problem with these 2 organizations.
But Paul, there's a big difference between coexisting and adding a $14 million.
Never had a problem, to my knowledge, with each organization maintaining its own budget. It really is interesting to me that it has become an issue because, again, I would question our funding sources are very different. We may share a donor or 2, but in terms of ongoing operational capacity, they really don't cross. And in terms of our annual operating liabilities, we're probably in a significantly more expensive position right now renting prime real estate on Main Street than we will be when we own our own building. With respect to taking care of our own strategic future, we don't really consider what other organizations are doing. In fact, we encourage other organizations. And when the steering committee first came on the horizon, I think it was interesting that we were prepped and ready to engage in the conversation, and some other organizations were not. That's not necessarily our fault. that we were prepped and ready. It's the fact that we've been thinking about a permanent home for 15 years. When we put this organization together with the help of the Fran and Warren Rupp Foundation and their consultants, we started thinking about a permanent home. And we've had at least, correct me if I'm wrong, Deanna, 3 opportunities where we have almost taken that step. And we pulled back because we thought the timing wasn't right, the money wasn't right, the opportunity wasn't right. When that building in the center of our service area became available and we were able to acquire that building, and then the steering committee came online and we were asked to join this conversation for these ARPA dollars, all of a sudden we thought, okay, this is the time. Now, in terms of a traditional capital campaign, this campaign is on its head because we have a situation in which, and again, I spent 20 years in fundraising, which I've never seen, where we have at least a half a dozen significant potential investors, all essentially saying we want to be last dollars. So we have approached this in such a way that we wouldn't normally approach a traditional campaign. And that's a strategic decision we made, and perhaps one that that we might regret when we recap this campaign. But I can tell you that the support is there. The support between the two organizations are not overlapping, maybe a half a dozen donors, if I'm honest. With respect to what this structure can do in this neighborhood, it's catalytic. It's catalytic in the same way that you saw your investment in the Westinghouse project. There is opportunity here. And it's opportunity, we understand you serve the entire county. And I'm looking at the apple on the wall, and I just have this metaphor that this neighborhood we're talking about is the core of Appleseed country. And unfortunately, the core is oftentimes thrown away. But if you think about it, that's where the seeds are. Your investment here in this city core is going to yield, I think, potentially decades worth of opportunity and growth for the entire county. Other organizations aside, one of the things that we haven't done well, and I recognize this as a board member, is raised our head and said, hey, look at us. If you went out on the street and said, which organization has been responsible for taking down more blighted homes in this community? It's us, but could people name that?
I would beg to differ and say the land bank, but
He would say that's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
We predate the land bank.
In companion with.
okay.
We love the land bank.
Yeah, again, I'm sorry, I know we're over time, but
Not over time. This is important conversations. These are important dollars. It's important community, so you're fine.
it is, and you have such a challenging task because so many of these projects are commendable. There is opportunity galore, and again, when I had the chance to sit in on one of the steering committee meetings, I was a little surprised that there weren't more asks because there are.
Oh, there's plenty of asks. Don't worry.
Okay, well,
They just all didn't go through the steering.
I'm actually glad to hear
Trust
that.
me, we had a village that has roughly 24 parcels in Richland County asked for $8.7 million. So,
Well, isn't it better to have a bounty of opportunity?
agreed. So, yes, Carl.
Look, I want to talk for just a minute about OC Hill. You were on city council when OC Hill closed. Never reopened after that. So your recollection of OC Hill, was it closed because of inactivity? Or was it closed because it was a building that was failing? The city felt like it couldn't afford to maintain and repair.
It was maintain and repair. Yeah, it was not well.
Lack of activity.
No, not lack of activity, but it had a substandard operating budget. There wasn't enough to keep it going. As in terms of activity, I really can't speak to that. But I looked at the numbers, and the numbers indicated it's not sustainable. And that's why it closed.
Richland County were tenants in that building as well. Job and Family Services, the Health Department, the Mental Health Board, as well as Catalyst, all were there. Richland County Youth and Family Council was the last entity, I believe, to leave So that it housed county services as well.
Those rents were not nearly sufficient to cover everything.
Rents were not nearly sufficient. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It was that was a building built on love for the community and just people trying to figure out how to do it the right way, how to do the right thing and offer services. I wish that I could, I think the biggest impact on that closing is all this violence. That now it's like it has been, you know, there have been a number of shootings. We just had K-Day this summer, and the violence is what is taking over. And so I don't know who else is going to address that. And this is right in the center of where it is, where we purchase, you know, where our footprint is for the land bank, is where a lot of that is occurring. NECIC is trying to move into something and get it cleaned up, which is going to affect the downtown. It's going to affect going around Route 39.
Can you get Bianchi to change the light there
I've
for
asked.
me? Because every morning I
You
yell at him in my head.
I do.
I even take a picture. Can you do something with that light if you guys move in there?
But I think that it's also, when you say catalytic, that's what I think about. I think about how many of Mario is an OC Hill kid who fortunately went to school and came back and is helping. But I think that there's a number of people Mario's age who are no longer with us. And so that's the passion you hear with me, because I don't know what other entity is dealing with that closely.
Al?
Yeah, at this point, is there a specific dollar ask, ARPA dollar ask for this project?
Yes, we're requesting $2 million from the county commissioners, ARPA funds.
Yeah, what kind of a commitment do you have from the city?
1.5.
Okay, so the rest of that figure that you presented at the beginning would be come from other sources, private
Yes.
donations, foundations, and things like that.
Yes, public, private, and corporate and individual support.
We may have you come in January. December's a busy budget cycle for us. We'll get you in one way or the other, at least for an update, probably in January.
Okay, that sounds good.
Al, anything else?
No, I think that's it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I'll talk to you in the hallways.
Mr. Thompson, can you send me the Excel version of this? I'm kind of a numbers guy. That way I can filter it, and I can't, it's a little difficult. I'm just to read that. Thank you. If you could send that to me. Okay, everyone, we'll come back with an update in probably 3 months or so. More dialogue to take place. Seeing no further business, we will adjourn at 11:17.
Thank you all for coming.